Just, in fact, it's not even released. I think it's being released tomorrow, but Finian sent it to us as a sort of an advance copy, which is great to have. And that was all recorded out of the Black Mountain Studios. And I'm playing that particularly because, well, it's a great song, but also because Black Mountain features in our next interview with a certain former politician, MP, MLA, and indeed local TD, Gerry Adams. Gerry, you're very welcome to Town Talk.
Thank you, Pat. And can I say that I'm a great fan of Zoe Conway's music?
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, there you go. Well, of course, there's Antrim mixed in there because we have Kieran Lavery in the program as well. So it kind of combines all the pieces of your backstory in many ways. Gerry, you've had a little bit of time since you took a little bit of a backseat from the politics and you've been writing. But mind you, you've been writing, as I realise now when I look at your CV, you've been writing pretty much all your life from the sound of things. This is not your first book we're going to be talking about. The book, of course, is called Black Mountain and Other Short Stories. How many books have you written, Gerry?
I've sort of lost count. Somewhere in the region of about 17, Pat, or thereabouts. This book is a book of short stories. It's my second book of short stories. The other one was called The Street. And it was 6 years in the making because I was in Leinster House at the time. I was representing them. Forever grateful to the people of Louth and Eastmeath for electing me, but I thought I would have got it done, but things were so hectic and so busy in that 6 years. It was only when the pandemic kicked in that I was able to put them all together and present this for people to have a wee read at. And it's stories about ordinary people, you know. As you say, I probably have been since. First, we did compositions in school. I probably have been dabbling at bits and pieces of writing over the years since.
Well, you mentioned school, Gerry. Where did you get the bug? I mean, what were you reading when you were a boy?
Well, mostly English stuff. You know, mostly Rachel Crompton, the Just William books. You know, the Eagles. A Boy's Own came into it a wee bit, and then as I got a wee bit older, started to, get into all the great Irish writers, the Frank O'Connors, Enda O'Brien's, and all the rest of them. And then as again my horizons expanded, it was into Steinbeck and Dickens and Toni Morrison. Gabriel Marquez and so on and so on. So a very eclectic taste in reading, and I'm in awe of some of these writers. And there's obviously a lot of really very, very good contemporary Irish writings on the go, particularly with women on the go this last 10 years or so, and writing, and that process is much more democratic than it used to be.
Well, reading those sort of authors back in your youth, I suppose, obviously inspired you, and at some stage in your life you said, I'm going to put pen to paper myself, and you decided to become a writer as opposed to a reader.
Well, it was almost accidental. I was in Long Cash, and Donny Morrison was the editor of Republican News, and he invited me to write a column. I was in a cage in Long Cash to write a column from the cages, and I started to do that. And then there's a good discipline about having to produce something every week. And it was supposed to be looking at what was happening outside politically, but it quickly became a mixture of also what was happening inside. And I was drawing little pen portraits of my comrades and fellow prisoners, and dealing with some of the funny and sad things that happened. Yeah. In prison. Two publishers spotted it, the late John Feehan from Mercier and the late Steve McDonagh from Brandon Books spotted a piece that I wrote about the Falls, which is my home district, and they asked me could I do a book on it, and simply because Steve was the first one to write to me, I undertook that. Again, it was a very busy time in my life, so it was produced under some pressure, and it became a bestseller at the time. I think that might have been about 1984.
Was that Falls Memories?
83. That's False Memory.
Yeah. Well, False Memories kind of brings me on to the man that did the foreword for your current book. That's Timothy O'Grady, because that featured in how you sort of encountered him in the first place. Do you remember that story?
Yeah. Timothy's a brilliant writer. My efforts are very modest compared to his, and he was probably, it was around the time I met him first. He's an American, but he was based in London and Ireland, and he was in West Belfast doing his own business, and we decided that we would swap books. Somebody had asked on my behalf for one of his books, and he said yes, he would do a swap for False Memories, and we've been sort of exchanging books since. And then I was delighted when I was writing this book that he offered. He lives in Poland, and again, he was, I suppose, incarcerated because of the pandemic, and I learned a lot from him. I find the process of writing, it's very therapeutic. I'm still very busy, and I spend an awful lot of time with other people. So writing is a solitary sort of occupation, and I find that I like that. And then the actual process of writing and how the characters emerge and how the endings happen and how the twists and turns in it. Sometimes these appear to happen of their own accord. So Timothy was very helpful in terms of, for example, how you would slow down a story, or how you would quicken up a story, or how would you develop a character, and so on. So I find I'm very grateful for what I learned.
And what he said is amazing, to say the least. And as you say, he's a credible person to have doing a great foreword for yourself. Can I ask you, Gerry, the book is dedicated for Richard. Do you want to say who and what that's about?
Yeah, Richard is the infamous, famous R.G. Macaulay, who has been my leader for many, many, many years. I'm his sort of frontman. And I spend a lot of time writing, and I spend a lot of time writing along with Richard, but it's mostly polemic. It's mostly speeches or statements. Not so much of that now as it used to be. And incidentally, he and I are producing, it's just going to the printer in the next short while, a book to be released in August about the protest in Armagh Women's Prison and about the women prisoners of Armagh going back to the 1930s up until the 1980s. So this is Richard's book. I thought it would be appropriate that I dedicate it to him, and
well done.
He seems to be, although he hasn't said this, but he does seem to be pleased that he gets this mention. He's very shy.
Well, he's up there and he's got a whole page to himself. Gerry, the book itself, it's a gathering of, I think, 11 short stories, all different in their own ways. Are they all, how to put it, works of the imagination, or are they based on real life encounters you've had over your life?
Yeah, well, they are all works of the imagination, but I'm sure that parts of me, things that have happened to me, people that I've met, feature, and there are some characters in it who might be composites of different people that I've met along the way. But it's essentially, and unlike other books that I've written, I actually wrote down a list of potential short stories a way back 6 years ago. And I just wanted to give testimony to what are sometimes referred to as ordinary people. And my experience, my life experience has been that ordinary people are actually quite extraordinary.
Absolutely.
Cheerful, they stay cheerful, focused and hopeful and caring, despite the burdens that some people have to carry through life. So one or two of them dip out of sort of prison experiences. One or two of them deal with childhood events like first confession, Dear John about a guy whose wife leaves him when he's in prison. Some of them are humorous. One or two deal with working class loyalist or unionist. I like to think there are little twists in all of the stories. I always like to think that most of the stories are redemptive. I would like to think that anyway, and some of them are meant to be funny. And my favourite is actually the last story up for
the match,
which I made the last story because it's a cheerful, happy story. Some of the other stories deal with child abuse, with domestic abuse. So I didn't want people to be narred in that, because life is positive and life is good, and that's what you make of it. So I would like to think, see, the business that I find is you have something in your imagination, and you write it down. And it's probably the same as broadcasting, the job that you're doing. You then take it from your mind and you transplant it into somebody else's mind. And if you can make them happy, if you can make them sad, if you can empower them, it's just this sort of magical process that it's all coming from the human mind. And I've always admired like singers and artists, photographers, but particularly poets and writers who can...
Storytellers.
Storytellers, absolutely. And we, of course, have a wonderful oral tradition of storytelling in both Irish and English in the on the end of Ireland and throughout the diaspora, and we have the benefits of two languages. And I make the point in my little foreword that the English tried to do away with our language, and what we did was we had Hibernicized their language, so the Hiberno English is what we all use, as island, and we've made it our own, and we also have the great living tradition, which thankfully has gone through a resurgence at the moment. Of the Irish language and storytelling through the Irish language.
Very much so, very much so. The title of the book, Black Mountain and Other Short Stories, Black Mountain is one of the short stories in it, and it features on the cover of the Black Mountain. That's the mountain that sort of cradles Belfast, or the hills maybe, perhaps. It's a small mountain. Why did you pick that as the title? What was special about that for you, and why did it become the title?
Well, it's omnipresent. Apart from the time... The only time I've lived outside of Belfast is when I was representing Louth as a TD, but I was always home at the weekends, and even from where I am now, the Black Mountain's just looking down at me. It's really in our lives, particularly in the lives of the people of West Belfast, because it's what it hugs us, it cradles us, and it has seen through the time from time immemorial, settlements of people here and all the travails and trials and tribulations and happy times. So it was actually the publisher who felt that the title Black Mountain would be appropriate, that it was an attractive title, but it also to a certain degree encompassed the community that live in the shadow and on the slopes of the mountain, and it seems to have worked.
And in terms of writing, you mentioned already that this is your second book of short stories. Have you a preference for writing short stories, because you've written many other types of books, or is this something that you might like to dip into and do, and then leave it for another few years and come back again?
Well, this is my favourite form of writing. It suits my lifestyle.
In what way?
It doesn't, because you can the story can marinate
yes.
your mind, and you can take a wee note.
Yeah.
The great thing I found when I got onto a laptop was you could write down 100 words about something that happened. It could be two dogs fighting in the street, or it could be a young fella pucking a slither, and you write it down, and then it's there, and then lo and behold, a year later, it fits into something else that's floating about in your head. So it just fits into the way that I work, and it doesn't have the same. It's liberating. It doesn't have the same. If I was to write if I was to write a statement now on behalf of Rory O'Mara, who our TD, or Imelda Munster, I would be limited to the party policy, to whatever the issue was about. I'd have to do a certain amount of words and get it to you or somebody else by a certain deadline. I don't have those disciplines. It is the will to actually find the time. I haven't done any of this type of writing since I published this book because I want to promote it. And obviously the pandemic stopped that. So I'm actually going to be in the Dundalk Museum on Saturday at 2, discussing and reading from the book and talking about some of the characters in it. But I would like to return to this mode of writing God Spares Me and produce something else in the time ahead.
So the launch, Gerry, of Black Mountain and Other Stories is going to be in the museum here in Dundalk on Saturday, the 25th, this Saturday at 2 p.m. So that's something, I believe that's open to the public, is it?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Everybody's invited and come along. You don't even have to buy a book, just come along. And will
you be signing?
The crack. Yes, I'll sign books, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. Well, that's something I'm sure a lot of people will want to turn up to and get a copy, Gerry. I'm going to play a song before I let you go. I'll let you go after, as the song's playing. But Gerry, I picked a song because when I was reading what Timothy O'Grady said in the foreword, he mentions an occasion where the sun was going down and over the bloody foreland, and you had a certain album on, and you were relaxing, I think, to say the least, after all your writing. Do you want to let us know what that album was, because I'm going to play a track from it? Do you remember?
Yeah, well, thank you, and Pat, thank you for helping me on your programme, and the very best.
A pleasure.
Good luck to you. Veedom Fleece, Timothy makes the point that we were obviously texting each other and talking on the phone late at night, and one particular event, he just makes mention at the end of his little foreword that I said to him I was in Donegal and the sun was going down over bloody foreland, and Van Morrison was singing Veedom Fleece, and I was having a glass of vino.
It sounds delightful. Everything about that is just perfect. Gerry, we're going to leave it at that. Good luck to you. Good luck with the book launch, and good luck with the book, Black Mountain and Other Stories. The book launch is in the museum here on Saturday at 2 p.m. And here's Van Morrison, and the only single he released actually from Veedom Fleece. This is Van Morrison and Bulbs. Thanks very much, Gerry Adams. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Amor. Slán, lad.
Slán.
Taking off from center field, question of being down for the game.